Hey everybody, welcome to the first in a series of homemade hot rod videos. So far, besides these hot rods that I've made, I'm planning on making 3 more pairs in the near future, so I'll be posting videos about those as I finish those up. So probably there will be a sprinkling of these videos every couple weeks on the weekends alongside the regular videos. Before we get going here, I feel like I need to give just a little bit of background to help what's coming up make more sense. These rods that I'm making are gonna be pretty big, heavy, and fat, even compared to Thunder rods. The only size dowels I was able to find at the store were 1/4 inch. The Thunder rod dowels are slightly less than 1/4 inch. So bundling 7 of these together is gonna be bigger than bundling 7 Thunder rod dowels together. Also, I decided to make a few adjustments to these to kind of make them suit my taste for heavier hot rods. If I'm going for a louder sound, I like to go all the way. I'm going to bundle these a little more tightly together, and I'm going to play around with the sanding on the ends to see if I can maybe get a punchier sound on drums, but still keep the cymbal sound mellower. Also, just to keep this video from getting crazy long, I didn't video any of the cutting or the gluing or even the sanding because that stuff isn't really that interesting to watch anyways. So we're skipping on to where we've got 16-inch dowels that are glued together and are also taped as the glue dried. And up next here, we're gonna add the shrink tubing. Okay, so the hair dryer was a total fail. It did not work at all because the shrink tubing that I bought was really a pretty heavy duty shrink tubing. I did not need to get shrink tubing this heavy duty. This stuff's too thick also. As you'll see here coming up, and maybe you could already tell, this stuff's really thick, and so it even makes the hot rods feel too big and too heavy in your hands. But because it's so thick and because it's so tough, it takes a lot of heat to shrink this down. So I realized hair dryer's not working. I don't have a heat gun, by the way, or I would have used that in the first place. Looks like we gotta test out the stovetop instead. The stovetop worked pretty well. What made me a little worried though was when I finished shrinking the tubing on there, holding it over the fire, I realized it looked like the wood glue had melted and was oozing out. I thought there's no way the wood glue would just melt. This is kind of worrisome. But as I went on with this, I realized, oh, this isn't the wood glue. The wood's fine, it's all glued together tightly. There's this adhesive that's inside the shrink tubing that is oozing out as it squeezes on to the dowels. So I just wiped it off with a paper towel and kind of cleaned that off. It kind of had a sap consistency, really sticky. At least as it hardens, I know the shrink tubing is not going to slide off, it's not going to go anywhere. So here you can see where I normally put that little piece of duct tape on the ends of my Thunder rods to pull them more tightly together, give the punchier sound that I like. So I decided I'd put that piece of shrink tubing right there in that same spot to string these tightly together to make these the ultimate heavy, fat rods. Okay, so looking at the roughly finished product now, you can see it's got some char marks from the fire on the stove. You do kind of have to be careful about that. A couple times I'd realize I was getting a little too close, and so I'd lift it up a bit. But I think they look kind of cool. As long as it doesn't get charred too much, it'll be fine, and it's a nice homemade DIY touch. So also here in this shot, you can get a good look at how we sanded these. I thought it'd be cool just to experiment with what sanding might do, just because any hot rods you buy in the store, they have slightly rounded individual ends of each dowel, but I haven't seen any where the whole end is sanded into a smooth point. So I thought it'd be cool to do that and maybe see what kind of sound difference we get, mainly on cymbals. That's what I'm interested in. What kind of different sound can I get on cymbals if I sand the ends and bundle them tightly together versus having a bunch of sharp edges of dowels that are loosely bundled. I'll make a totally different kind of pair next week that we can compare to these. So my hot rods that I made are most definitely heftier and fatter and heavier than ProMark's Thunder rods, but by how much? Let's find out. All right, we've got this scale set to grams. Here goes a Thunder rod, weighing in at 58. We'll say 57 grams. We'll see if the other hot rod weighs the same. Yeah, I guess we could average it out, say about 60 grams. So roughly a hot rod weighs 60 grams. Now let's see how much mine is. That's not a huge difference, 75 grams, so 15 grams more roughly. But mine are definitely fatter because my dowels are a solid 1/4 inch a piece. Whereas the dowels on ProMark's Thunder rods are more like 3/16-ish. So we'll say that mine came in weighing 15 grams more. And at this amount, that's really a pretty big percentage. And if you could hold these, this thing definitely feels very heavy and will most definitely be louder. We'll have to do a sound test next. So on to the sound testing. As most of you know, I live in an apartment, and so I can only make so much noise. I wish I could just wail away on the kit and do a good sound comparison between these and sticks. They'd probably actually sound really similar, especially on the actual drums. And if we put a little bit of compression there in the mix, it might even end up sounding the same. But the main difference here is going to be cymbal sound, like hitting the end of the rod onto a ride cymbal. That isn't so loud, so that I can do here in my apartment. So let's do some comparisons. Hey, thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And leave me a comment, let me know that you dropped by, give the video a thumbs up, share with a friend. And stay tuned for some more hot rod videos coming up every couple weeks as I make some more of these. Thanks everybody for watching. I will see you next week.